Hello, welcome to Longshot Larry's Sports Astrology. We're looking at the final of the women's T20 cricket between Australia and South Africa. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented on the practice chart. I'm going to use all those comments in today's presentation, so thanks very much for that. So Australia are favourites, South Africa are the underdogs. So Australia are going to be Gemini and Mercury, Aries, MC and Mars. The underdog South Africa are going to be represented by Sagittarius and Jupiter and Libra and Venus. And the part of fortune is also ruled by Mercury, but Mercury takes precedence of Lord of the First. So you can see Venus and Jupiter very close to the MC here. So Jupiter rules the descendant. It's within the 10th house, separating 1 degree. That's a pretty strong testimony for the favourites Australia. Venus is Lord of the Fourth. It is applying within 3 degrees. So that's 1 for the underdog South Africa. On those two alone, you would be picking Australia. Looking at the Antiscas gets very interesting because Mercury is Lord of the First, and it is applying what's within that 1.5 to 2 degree area of the Antisca of the South Node, which weakens that. You can also see that Jupiter is applying to the Antisca of the part of fortune 3.5 degrees away, which strengthens the underdog again. So this is a bit of a mixed result here. Jupiter is the closest, so I would give precedence to that, but nothing conclusive there. Now look at the new moons on the 20th of Feb. I think they still have an effect. So in the capital for Australia, Canberra, this time of the new moon, you can see Pluto is on the descendant there, within 2 degrees. It is sextile Venus, which is helpful. New moon's not making any aspects. Uranus is applying to the MC, but it's too far away, in my opinion. No close links to the chart for Australia from that. The new moon in South Africa. Now, South Africa is a bit of a challenge because you've got 3 capitals. So I've used Pretoria. The new moon's not making any aspects there. You do have Chiron on the ascendant, but I haven't noticed Chiron to be of much importance. When you line up the new moon with the chart for South Africa, the constitution, which I find works quite well. So the new moon, 1 Pisces 20, is square Venus, separating 40 minutes. Venus does rule the sun, so that's a slight negative. Jupiter's just past the conjunction of Mars, which is helpful. If that was on the ascendant, that would be very strong. That's just a slight negative on the new moon charts. So I'm going back to this chart here now. Apart from Venus and Jupiter, you can see there's a couple of close aspects. So the moon starts off in 28 Taurus. It's going to square Saturn about 23 minutes, which is about 45 minutes of actual time. And then it goes on to trine Pluto, and then it will eventually move into the early degrees of Gemini. So I think that's important going through here. So generally the moon square Saturn is going to be bad for Capricorns, because Saturn rules Capricorn. Moon trine Pluto is going to be good for Scorpios. Alright, so let's go through Australia. I'm going to bring the country up first. The country charts, I think, outrank the captains when have these big international games. It's just my opinion. So Jupiter close to the MC is going to be an important planet to have links to, and you can see Jupiter's 1119. It is applying to the Australian Mars, and Mars in a country chart represents sporting achievements. A quincunx is a neutral aspect. Mars is square Venus quite closely. Jupiter is past the trine to Venus, but it is triggering that Mars square Venus aspect. The Sun is interesting here. The Sun is 7 Pisces 39. It's going to form an exact sextile to Saturn in Australia's chart. Now, I've talked in other videos about how important Saturn is for Australia because Saturn rules the Sun and the Capricorn MC, so that's going to be exact during the game, which I think is a minor positive there. The Australian captain, Meg Lanning, what's happening with her? So Venus conjunct to Mercury, I don't think that accounts for much. You can see this moon square Saturn. Saturn is past the conjunction to her Mars, separating just over a degree, and Mars rules her Aries sun. If that was applying, that would be a big nasty, a big negative, but it is moving past, which indicates it has already happened. Jupiter on the MC here is semi-square her Mars, but it's over 2 degrees, so that's probably a bit far away. When you bring up the progress chart for Meg Lanning, things get interesting. The progress sun has moved to 5 Taurus. And you'll see that it's past a trine to her progressed Jupiter, applying to her trine to her Jupiter, and pretty closely trine her node. So she's got a grand trine there. And the transiting node is applying to a conjunction to her Sun, node, progress Jupiter. She's got a grand trine there. She's also got Uranus square Saturn, slightly separating, which isn't very helpful. And Mercury at 22 Aquarius 39 is going to be exactly square her Pluto, which you wouldn't think is very helpful. If you look up here at her progress Mars, it's 21 Pisces 39. Mars rules her Aries Sun. Well, it isn't a trine. Oh, it's not quite close enough. So nothing fantastic happening there. Now looking at South Africa, how does the chart for South Africa line up to this game? South African Mars is on the MC at the start, which is very helpful. Mars, and it's in Aries, very good sign for Mars, which is very helpful at the start. Now Mars is quincunx Jupiter natally. Jupiter is past a conjunction to Mars. If Jupiter was conjunct Mars here, that would be very beneficial for South Africa, but it's just a little bit past. You can see the Sun is in Taurus and the MC is in Scorpio. The nodal axis is across that. Now this is where it gets interesting. Now the Moon square Saturn. If you look at South Africa's chart, you can see Venus, which rules the Sun, is opposite Pluto. Okay, and those particular alignments, and Pluto rules the MC and Venus rules the Sun. Now Saturn is right in the middle of those two. It's what we call the midpoint. It's right in the middle of Venus Saturn. So when the Moon squares that in the first 45 minutes, I don't think that is helpful for South Africa. But then the Moon goes on to trine Pluto in about, well, just under a degree, so between the hour and a half and 2 hour mark. And Pluto is applying to a trine to Venus here. Now it's a degree and a half away. If Pluto was in Aquarius, if it moved in the next sign, that would be stronger. Is it close enough? I don't think it quite is close enough, but that would be very positive. And the Moon's going to finish up in early degrees of Gemini, so it is going to be applying to that Venus. So if South Africa win, that's what you would put it down to. Looking at the South African captain Sune Loose, she is a Capricorn, so the Moon square Saturn's not going to be overly ideal for her. The Moon is 135 degrees, Saturn is 45 degrees away from her Sun, so it's going to be a challenging start, I think, especially around that 45-minute 10 over mark for South Africa. But then the Moon goes on to trine Pluto. Pluto is conjunct to Uranus. Now I'm not sure how Uranus links in with the rest of her chart. Uranus is conjunct Mars natally. I tend to think that's a positive, but we're not 100% sure if Uranus rules her MC. She does have Mars trine her Venus, which is a very nice aspect. Potentially Jupiter square her Moon, which would be outstanding. That would be a very good aspect to have. And you can see the part of fortune down here at 14 Virgo's trine her Sun. That's a very nice aspect too. Uranus just passed a trine to that, and just passed a trine degree, past a trine to her Sun. If that was applying, that would be a lot stronger, but it's separating, which tends to mean it's already happened. Looking at her progressions, you can see that Jupiter up here on the MC at the start is applying to a sextile to her progress Sun, which is very nice. It's an opportunity there to win. So if I look at this in summary, it's quite interesting. The previous two World Cups, in the T20 men's, England lost the first game, then they went on to win the cup. In the FIFA World Cup, Argentina lost the first game, then they went on to win the cup. Is history going to repeat here? Is South Africa going to lose the first game and then go on to win the Women's World Cup? It's going to be very interesting. The Frawley method, that is a very strong indication, the Lord of the 7th in the 10, and it is the closest in terms of degrees. It's only separating 1 degree. If the game starts 5 minutes late, that does change that. That swings the odds back to South Africa. But South Africa does have plenty of support from other indicators there. So that's not conclusive, in my opinion. So as far as the aspects, the links to Jupiter on the MC are important, and also that Moon square Saturn then trine Pluto. I think South Africa do look a lot better. They have a better chance than the bookmakers suggest. I think that Moon square Saturn is not good for South Africa. but when the moon goes on to trine Pluto and eventually moves into Gemini, there's a possibility they get the win. I think overall Australia are just going to get this, but I think it should be another cracking game. The semi-finals were very, very close. Bookmakers have Australia very short favourites, which doesn't seem to make sense to me, but should be a great game. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.